Hello, it's Lee again. This video is simply going to be about, well, in its basic underlying sense and in its obvious way, about shamanism in the modern day world. Basically, shamanism has never really gone anywhere. The only thing is I would say the visible practitioners that would have been seen as very commonly accepted are now coming back, because there was a time where the magical, religious, mystical healer had been gone, well, I guess from the Western point of view and in other places, dispatched and put away. And of course, as you know, the larger religions took over and sort of kicked aside the typical tribal healer, medicine man and miracle worker, etc. So basically my quick discourse on this for this evening is going to be that shamanism is essentially a basic, and I will use that word, a basic and at the same time almost unequaled and unparalleled mode of being, as far as being tapped into the spiritual world, to put it in that simple way for the exact moment of this talk. Now, as long as human beings have been here, and as long as people have tried to discover what was more and what was beyond, what was working behind the scenes, what was the purposes in life and death, why did people get sick, why do people have dreams, basically why are human beings, why are souls who animate the bodies of human beings here to begin with. And as these natural inclinations and these questions arise in human beings since the very beginning up until now, then there are people that were sincere enough to really look for authentic answers, and as such were met by entities that were more powerful than the entity in the frame of the human body, who could and was their job to answer and assist mankind. Now, even the great religions, many of them were started by the one true God with the great intentions. A lot of them also are false doctrines put into the world by selfish mechanisms coming from darkened individuals. Now, all of this whole earth school is to develop the soul, the consciousness of the eternal entity, each an individual one, myself, yourself. I am no more and no less than any single entity that exists in the cosmos, and neither are you, more or less than. The thing to understand is, it is the word, because there is no perfect word to put it, but is the Great Spirit is the God that is the underlying loving life force behind us all. We are part and parcel of this life force, but it being the first master and we the students branched off from it will come to the same knowing in our own time, as each one is accepting or denying the mighty understandings of the bliss of reality in the higher sense and way of being. So, as for shamanism, well, it's been archaic techniques that have been around for time immemorial, whether on this planet or another planet, going back into endless time and going into the future of endless time, and there is no real time. I don't like to look at time as linear. I don't like to look at time as a spiral. I don't like to look at it anyway, but however you'd like to look at it, the different souls engaging in the flukes of consciousness and realization, enlightenment, whichever word you like to use. Different connotations, pros and cons have been put on each. But the fact is, there always have been people looking for the truth, and now I'll get into very, I guess, a little more simple practical details. Anybody that wants to find God and or the self with a capital S must lose the small self and be sincere in their search. The availability of divine knowing in the spiritual world, the spiritual access, is immediate upon your wanting to be sincere in it. Even if your sincerity in it is for a selfish task, because we are here to get our desires out, and then we shall ascend when they are no longer abounding in us. So you will hear stories, and there are indeed massive bodies of humans that are on the darker side of things. You know, you can think of New World Order and whatnot. These are cheesy names in modern times, but really, yes, it's a real thing, but it goes back very far. And it has to do with the vibration of the emotional state of the soul body that the entity is in. Now, all of us are here to hopefully succeed sooner as opposed to later with our spiritual development. This reality that we're living in these human bodies, this is almost like a dream but not, almost like a hologram or an illusion but not, almost a dream that is a memory that we've already had, and yet it is not. In the concrete, seemingly concrete vibration of the human body, the clay that we animate, things seem very real, but these are the lowest levels of reality and therefore the less real of all. So by saying that, you and I already are eternal souls, soul sparks, entities, eternal consciousness, beings designed for bliss and happy relationships with each other. Until we are all exceedingly best friends, then we will come back to similar planets. Meaning to say, we ought to take on the mantle of our loving every single entity we meet with a great kindness. And, you know, as the old cliche, but the old sayings, love your neighbor as you love yourself. And that is exactly a true quote, because that's how it should be. So, as for shamanism is concerned, it's just a word, but it now encapsulates a good variety of what it means. And for people that are sincerely getting into the mystic or looking for God, looking for truth, it is a difficult and yet it is an easy path at the same time. Difficult because you will face trials, you will face dangers, you will face the breaking down of your habitual modes of thinking and ways of life, perhaps. And it doesn't have to be to degrees that are completely upside down. But be prepared for a bit of a challenge. And on the other hand, it's easy because it's natural for us to thirst for something bigger and better than what is seen and perceived commonly, typically, in our everyday human type of living circumstance. Now, the ways that, well, let me say it this way. The thirst for something better and beyond this planet is in an exceedingly great amount of people. With the advent of YouTube, which indeed was something of a technology, the internet, brought down to us by more advanced beings in bodies that are having a easier time in their cosmos vision, i.e. aliens, which is a terrible word for them because they're not alien, and you can call them the Watchers too if you'd like. And we've been allowed to, at the mind stroke of the will of divinity, the will of karma, as it was meant to be, the master orchestra, we have now been coming into an era where we are looking at each other in a different way totally to see that we're all the same, more and more the same. And this is going to shatter the old separation beliefs. Now, there's still a lot of garbage on YouTube and, you know, pride of different things and racisms and sexisms of different various sorts from all over the world. And what's nice to see is that we, for the most part, are getting into a new paradigm and therefore above and beyond this kind of stuff. So a spiritual revival, I don't want to say revival if it was as if it was never there and a constant, because it always was. But what's happening now is a shift in higher awareness and a a realization that we are, and a good feeling, a good, emotional satisfaction that we are moving in the right direction. Now, to be someone that's a mystic or shaman, or whatever word you like to use, in this modern age is difficult and also thrilling, because as far as book knowledge or videos or things like this, or looking at being able to see a video on costumes and style, and these are things more of the olden days, and it doesn't really matter look and style in the present age. If you went around dressed in a certain way, you'd be laughed at. People wouldn't understand, because a lot of people are still under the influences of those that would like to make money off them and put them into various forms of entrapment. So to totally be yourself in this planet right now, in every way you'd like to be, is a little difficult, because there's some sort of conformity. And yes, pros and cons to it either way, because some types of it are good. A lot of types are bad. But anyway, the main essential aspiring intention, the intention to link with your internal soul, your internal eternal soul, and your external eternal soul, and with the guidance of spirit, and to honor that and behold that in everybody else, must be the first step. The intention and the want for, and I have to speak for the light because I don't work for the dark side, to aspire to the light, to holiness, to endeavor to great goodness, the sense of right, righteousness, justice. This is the noble cause for anyone to engage themselves in. This brings constant and everlasting bliss in the soul, the power of knowing as opposed to belief. Now I want to mention something very quick as a quick side order to this talk, but it's still within the whole broad aspect of spirituality. A lot of people have a big misunderstanding about faith and knowing, belief and intuitive understandings, or just rather knowing and not knowing. Now the tricky thing is, when you truly believe you know, but your actual knowing will come into place based on experience only. A lot of people can say, oh well, you live once and die, that's it. And in their mind they can know that's true, but is it true? A lot of people can say, or a lot of people can easily believe a religion that they grew up with or they inherited, and say, oh, I believe in such and such, without ever questioning it, without ever experiencing its spiritual aspect, its overall intention towards them, which was spiritual bliss. If you have Christians or Muslims or whoever the case that want to believe in such a thing, but then won't even accept for themselves angelic experiences or meetings with divine entities and things like this, so they're holding on to it, but they're not ready for a direct experience. In that kind of sense, your faith and what you believe in is still in a premature state. Now, all of the spiritualities in this earth right now at the time exist to correct each other and overall to guide and make comparisons for an overall truth gain access. Now, a person that it can be authoritative in matters spiritual are people that have experienced things directly. If you hand down the words of somebody else, or if you pass down a story, how authentic could it really be? A story can get muddled. Look at the original intentions of Christianity, for example, and now what has happened with it. It's controlled most certainly by dark forces, even though the original was not at all. So much to the point that people are even saying, oh well, Jesus was invented by Illuminati to trick you, and yada yada yada. A lot of people actually believe that. And that's exactly what the Illuminati want you to believe. They're laughing at you while you're saying that. People that have experienced great spiritual journeys on the other side, they are the ones that truly know what's going on, what the truth is and what a falsity of a situation is or not. And a lot of it has to do with perfecting your relationship with entities that are in a current state of access of truth to help you. Now, we can have the ability of looking inside and finding all of God and all of truth inside us. You can find all of God and all of truth inside of a grain of rice or a stone, because it is manifest by the energy of God. Therefore, the God is present, the creator force. There is always a creator. You and I did not create ourselves, at least not in the original way, in a causal way that we're thinking. Now, we are at this point, co-creators in the universe if we engage this aspect. So, shamanism in a modern world engages all these aspects. You really are walking in two places at once. The words I'm speaking now are not as good as I would like them to be, I'll be very honest, because I can't relate my knowingness in my mind, my mental body, or transmit the feeling of calm and great bliss and power I have in my soul, because the language I have and my limited formation of words on the spot speaking to a camera just can't do it justice. But the fact is, practicing with great intentions, great faith, great hope for love and light will safeguard you and put barriers of protection all around. And then your access to self-development will not only be good for yourself and your own logical discourses in your mind, but then prepare you for actual experiences with other entities. People that consider themselves intelligent and spiritual and awake to some degree, but do not have spiritual experiences that are, miraculous or mind-shaking, are still in a decision-making process. But for all intellect or no intellect, people that have made a decision in their heart to be humble and submissive to love gain instant accesses to the divine spiritual world instantaneously, sometimes surprisingly, how fast it can come. One of my experiences was that I did not talk to God or have an experience for quite some time. This is when I was about 20, 21 years old, and I put that aspect of my reality on side. And on the very night I went down like a meek, tiny little child, I had lit a white candle and made a prayer, and that very night a very powerful dream came to me. So it's about submission to love, which is the greatest aspect of what we call God. So I could talk for a very long time, but a lot of people don't like long videos. They get bored or they want to go look around. Sometimes we're in a search for a lot of knowledge at once, so we want to check a lot of different facets. So I won't keep you too long on this one if you're still with me by now. But I will be showing some very basic techniques on a few things that you might like to try to get more spiritual, more mystical, more shamanic, to use those words. And it might help you to, and it might just be my style that works for me and not for you, but it might help you to perceive the spiritual world and the other dimensions a little bit better than you are now. And maybe not. My closing thoughts are, shamanism in the modern era is alive and well and is on a revival. No other human being can tell you how close and deep and awake and aware and permeated with light you can be. There is no church to stop you. The sky's the limit and beyond the sky. There is no roof. Excuse me very much. There is no authority other than your agreement with the higher knowledge that will answer you. You will decide where you will want to put the brick wall or not. So that is a great mystery in itself. That's also a trick and a key to get past. I wish to see this world very happy and content, and people that are striving and trying hard to get into the mystical accesses, who are looking for guides, who are asking for dreams, who are looking for their totem, who are looking for their life's purpose, to really understand that the answers are always already there, and you just must agree to look at them when you're ready, in the right time and frame. So you will be able to engage them, get the answer, get the moment of bliss that will improve you and move you onwards. As for me, I can have a good laugh at myself. I'm like a Hayoka in my own way. I walk backwards, I talk funny, so to speak. And a bit of a clown, a bit of a contradiction. But that's how it is for me. Sometimes controlled, a lot of times uncontrolled. But talking about controlled folly. And this has allowed many great things to happen. And the truth in me is the truth in you. There's no division. There's no differences. That's why when they say smile on your brother, well, let's do it. Because we are all linked to the same life force, and it's a great thing. Shamanism in this era is doing very well. And to use that word, mystical practices are available as you want them. So, as you're thirsty, go for it. I certainly have been trying, and you take it in chunks, as much as you can digest, but the rewards are incomparable, priceless, and constant, and that's the main thing. I wish you well. Have yourself a good evening, good day, good weekend, whenever you watch the video. Have a good moment, and take care.